fly ball into right field. She is gone. In a year that has been so improbable, the impossible has happened. This one by Mattingly. Oh, hang on to the roof. Goodbye, home. Dodge Mattingly. Taco makes one. Deep left field. Down the line. That ball is out of here. Out of here.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Tablesetters covering all things Major League Baseball. As always, I'm Steve, joined with my tag team partner, Devin. What's going on, man?
What's up, everybody? Welcome to episode 110 here. We are in the thick of things, in the middle of the NLCS and the ALCS. Still lots of baseball to be played. We're going to talk about what we've seen so far, what we can expect in the next few days here, the next week or so. And we also are going to have a visitor midway through the show to help us talk a little bit about the recently eliminated Detroit Tigers and their future.
Absolutely. And before we get started, I want to wish all of our Canadian followers out there and you, Devin, a very happy Canadian Thanksgiving, which was celebrated last night, second Monday in October, as always. And we saw Joe Davis and John Smoltz eating the turducken, or there was a turkey breast in the booth. Bold move, but to all our Canadian followers out there, we are trending in Canada because of the Blue Jays coverage. So shout out to you guys. Hope you had a blessed weekend.
Yeah, no doubt. I wonder how the Blue Jays fans felt watching that game, like as their team is not doing so well, and the two guys in the booth are chowing down on some turkey and some stuff. I know at the post game coverage with Jeter and A-Rod and all those guys, Poppy, were saying that the turkey looked like maybe a little too pink, and that maybe some Pepto-Bismol might be needed on the way for Joe Davis. So we'll stay tuned on that.
And it's always funny, too, when you watch the coverage on American Thanksgiving with all the, obviously, football going on. They never touch the food that's in the booth, if I'm correct. And these guys were chowing down. It looked like John Smoltz was legitimately very hungry when the food came through.
Yeah. And Smoltz got himself into some trouble yesterday. I think it was game 2. Maybe it was game 1. But he went on a little bit of a rant mid-game, just praising everything Cal Raleigh, saying he should be the AL MVP. And, of course, that drew the ire of some New York Yankee fans that are still paying attention to these games.
So we will definitely have conversations about the MVP, and for all understanding, the votes have been submitted. The answer is out there. We just have to unlock the envelopes and all of that, but we will have time to speak about that. As Devin mentioned, we'll have Jordan Hall from the Eat 'em Up podcast talk about Tarik Skubal and all the Tigers drama and what's going to happen in the offseason, and some of the comments from GM Scott Harris, or President of Operations Scott Harris. So a lot of good stuff. But let's hop into our meat of the order and talk about everything happening around the championship series. All right, we're going to start where we left off last night with the NLCS Game 1. Blake Snell shined as the Dodgers outlasted a lot of the chaos that happened in the 9th inning. And we had Pat Murphy's Milwaukee Brewers coming in as the National League Championship Series, embracing this average Joe's. And there seemed like an argument in the buildup, Devin, of who is the bigger underdog. No, you're the favorite. I'm the favorite. You're the favorite. Mm-hmm. No doubt about it. The smallest market in baseball, fueled by all the chemistry we've seen all year. They're facing an LA Dodgers club with a record $509.5 million payroll, 3 former MVPs in the lineup. But on Monday night, it came down to Blake Snell's left arm, and man, he looked damn good.
Yeah, man, when we think of Blake Snell for the last several years, I think most people think about a extremely talented left-handed pitcher who walks too many guys and struggles to get deep into games because of it. He didn't walk a guy last night, and he's been much better in that department as of late, and as a result, he has been a different level of dominant. When you think about being able to take the walks away or even just cutting them down for a guy like Blake Snell, I mean, you have one of the best pitchers in the sport right now, and I guess you did already, but like I feel like elevates himself to the levels of a Tarik Skubal and a Paul Skeens. Like he can be mentioned in that same breath, where before he's in the next group of guys. I mean, there are so many accolades he's hitting recently. I'll read you a few that are on Twitter here all over the place. So Blake Snell's playoff career, 32.6% K rate, leads all starting pitchers in MLB postseason history with a minimum of 50 innings pitched. Pretty good. Blake Snell of the Dodgers is the first Major League Baseball pitcher to face the minimum through 8 innings of a postseason game since Don Larson in his 1956 perfect game. And how about this one here? Since ERA became official, in both leagues in 1913. Only one pitcher has had a 6-start span at any point, regular or post, with a 5-0 or better record, sub-1 ERA, 50-plus strikeouts, 15 or fewer hits allowed, and that is Blake Snell over his last 6 starts, which includes 3 regular season and 3 postseason. And there's more. I could go on. We could probably spend 10 minutes going through Twitter and reading the different accolades that people have noticed he has achieved in this last month or so. So, I mean, listen, the Brewers pitching with the Priesters of the world did everything they could do to keep this game close. Blake Snell was too good. The Dodgers gave them a little bit of a chance to sneak back into it by taking Snell out after 8. But in the end, I mean, nail biter, just another great postseason game. And that's just a general comment. How good have these games been? Just fantastic, memorable, just a great postseason so far.
For sure. And the Los Angeles wound up edging the Brewers 2-1 to take a 1-0 series lead at the American Family Field. And you mentioned the accolades for Blake Snell, and he faced the minimum, as you mentioned, going through 8 innings, allowing just 1 hit, a single up the middle by Caleb Durbin in the 3rd, and then immediately erasing it with the pickoff at first base. So essentially faced just the bare minimum and really wasn't sweating. So by the end of the night, his line read something like, out of a simulation of a video game: 8 innings pitched, 1 hit, no walks, 10 Ks, 91 pitches, 65 for strikes, and just 1 ball to the outfield. Wound up finishing the night with 103 pitches, and they had the chance, as you mentioned, to bring him out for the 9th. I don't think anyone would have gasped at that. And we had the conversation, what would be the criticism on Dave Roberts if the Dodgers bullpen, which has been shaky all year, if they want to blowing that lead, the masterpiece. And before we move on to that conversation, we had the Elias Sports Bureau coming out there and posting, and that Snell's the first pitcher in postseason history to strike out at least 10 and allow 1 hit with no walks in 8 innings. Milwaukee hitters went 0 for 21 with 7 strikeouts against his fastball slider combo and produced an average exit velocity of 82.6 miles per hour. The other crazy things, you're seeing comparisons to Sandy Koufax. Like, oh, there's no chance that that's actually real. But Sandy Koufax in the 1965 playoffs, here's his line: 24 innings, 13 hits, 2 runs, 5 walks, and 29 strikeouts. Now, compared to Blake Snell's in these playoffs, 21 innings, 6 hits, 2 runs, 5 walks, 28 strikeouts. So you're putting him in rare air. This is a guy who's doing things that Dodger great Sandy Koufax has done. And like we said, we have to appreciate while we're watching in real time.
Yeah, he's just been unbelievable. And there was a tweet out there yesterday by Jake from Talking Baseball, John Boy, and he just simply said anyone could have signed Blake Snell. And whether we know how true that is or not, it is interesting because I don't know if the pool of applicants for his services was as big as it should have been. And I know he was very excited, and he said a few times he's very excited to play for Los Angeles, knowing the Mookie Betts and the Freddie Freemans and the Shohei Ohtanis of the world are there, and the playoffs are so meaningful to those guys and kind of an expectation, not a possibility. But to go to Dave Roberts for a minute, there is a degree. I know people think he's this great manager and he'll have all the wins and a lot of playoff success to back it up. There are times I just feel like he gets really lucky. So he takes Blake out after 103 pitches. It looked like he could have gone out there and finished the 9th pretty easily, to be honest, with the way he was cruising. Now, you put Roki Sasaki in, who has been absolutely dominant since he's moved to the bullpen. He has a little bit of a rough outing. Another piece of luck is the second hit, the double, is a ground rule double. Now, if that doesn't bounce over the wall and maybe it rolls around a little bit, maybe that run comes home. I don't know. So there's a little bit of fortune there. Now, I will give Roberts some credit. He has the guts to make the move to Blake Treinen, and Treinen has not been good. Part of me wonders if Tanner Scott was healthy and still on the roster. You have Turang coming up, lefty. Maybe they bring Scott out, who has blown a lot of these close games. You think about some of those dominant Yamamoto starts where he almost goes like no hitter, and they bring Scott in, they end up losing the game. And other guys too. Treinen's been a mess too, but I wonder. People will talk about that ball almost hitting Turang in the knee and like, oh, just let it hit you. Easier said than done. Your body's reacting to a sweeper that's moving at a crazy rate, and your body just reacts. So I'm sure if he could do it over again, he would take that pitch right to the knee. And then he swings at the high pitch way over his head. Tough spot. If I'm a Brewers fan, I definitely am I'm feeling a little nauseous today knowing that we had that. Imagine getting the win after Blake Snell went 8 shutout innings against the minimum. Like, that's such a deflator for the Dodgers if they lose that game. And also, if you're a Brewer fan, like it's a tough pill to swallow dropping game 1 at home and knowing the Dodgers still have so much firepower left in their rotation, and their offense is probably going to be better than it has been. Ohtani still kept in check basically for a long time in that game. The only run they had was Freddie Freeman's solo shot. So it's still not clicking for them. We'll see. I didn't leave that game thinking the Brewers are done by any means. But I do kind of feel like they have to win tonight. They can't go to Los Angeles down 2-0. And also, they can't lose Freddie Peralta to start here. They can't. I know Yoshinobu Yamamoto's on the other side, and that's pretty damn tough. But I feel like tonight is as close to a must-win game as it's going to get.
Yeah, I agree. And we'll talk about the ALCS series, which turned on its head as well with losing home field advantage. And historically, it has happened. We've seen teams overcome it. The Yankees did it in 1996 against the Braves. So it is something that can be done. But what are the chances that you drop 2 at home and then go on the road and come back home and win the series? Especially a team like the Dodgers, who we said are approaching dynasty status. And you mentioned the offense not really getting going. That was Freddie Freeman's first home run of the 2025 postseason, his 8th career playoff home run as a Dodger. And it feels like they're not completely going. And how many times are we going to walk Shohei Ohtani to load the bases and realize it doesn't work out? I mean, we watched the Phillies get burned by it. The Dodgers now had the Brewers get burned by it. So it's something that we're looking at as maybe let Shohei swing the bat and prove that he can hit. I mean, Mookie Betts is a former MVP himself that has proven that it does not work out. Loading the bases is such a tightrope to walk for these pitchers and such a tight spot. But before we move on to game 2 and talk about the matchup, you mentioned Freddie Peralta, we have to talk about the play of the postseason, the Milwaukee 8-6-2 miracle. And the play of the night definitely belonged to the Brewers defense. So I'm going to lay it out for you guys. In the bottom of the 4th, with the bases loaded, 1 out, Max Muncy sent a deep drive to center that appeared destined for potentially a grand slam. Sal Frelick timed his leap perfectly. The ball clipped off his glove, stuck the yellow top of the wall, and bounced back into play. So obviously confusing was everywhere. Everyone's looking around what's going on. Teoscar Hernandez broke late from third. He's thrown it home, while Will Smith, caught retreating to second, was forced out very, very timely by William Contreras going over there and tagging the bag. So this went down as the first 8-6-2 double play in postseason history and just the second on record since 2004. Statcast measured the drive at 104.1 miles per hour off the bat, 404 feet in distance with an expected batting average of 940 with a win probability swing of 44%. This play was insane. Roberts talked about this in the postgame, said it's one of those plays you might see once in a lifetime. The baseball gods were smiling at the moment, maybe not at us, but the game itself. This was crazy. Great insight. You posted on our Tablesetters pod Twitter page that this has happened before. So if you want to explain it, Teoscar Hernandez was involved in something like this.
Well, the Dodgers were involved. So Mets-Dodgers was an Apple TV game with Wayne Randazzo of the Angels getting the call for Apple TV. Used to work with the Mets as well. So anyway, so Tyrone Taylor chasing a ball in center field. Michael Conforto on second base. I believe Shohei Ohtani on first. And Tyrone bobbled the ball, hit off his glove, kind of went a little bit higher. So it wasn't a wall ball or anything like this one that we saw last night, but hit off the glove, bobbled it, and then ended up catching it. Now, Conforto, if you watch that clip, and you can go to our Twitter page, like Steve said, and see it for yourself, if you haven't seen it before, if you just need a reminder. So Conforto left second base pretty much right when it looked like Taylor was going to catch it the first time. Taylor ends up throwing it into second. They think they're basically doubling up Conforto. Lindor steps on second and, kind of looks like he got him. Shohei Ohtani tries to slide in a second. There's confusion similar to last night. Maybe not quite as crazy of a scene, but definitely confusion. Conforto, to be honest, if you watch that video against the Mets, I did not watch that and think, oh, he knew the rule, and as soon as it touched, he went. It looked like he started to go thinking he caught it, then doubted himself, but just kept on going, and then ended up getting bailed out by the actual rule book, and he was okay. But that's the Dodgers involved in that play. Fast forward to last night, and it looks like a lot of them did not remember that. I mean, Teoscar Hernandez is guilty party number 1. There was a lot of confusion on the base paths. Number 1 might be that they couldn't tell if it was caught or not, like what just happened, or did it go over the wall? It's not the easiest thing to tell, bang, bang, like that. But Hernandez, he doesn't really have a leg to stand on. Dave Roberts kind of complaining that the umps didn't make a call, but then they showed a replay that one of them did make a really good call really quickly to show what was going on. So, yeah, I mean, it was confusing. You would expect major league players to know this rule, especially a team that was involved in a similar play a couple months ago in the regular season. But like you said, as crazy as a play as you'll ever see, maybe the craziest. And I believe I read the interesting thing about like the stat keeping. This goes into the book as a GIDP, grounded into double play. And I believe it is the first ever grounded into double play, quote unquote, that never touched the ground at all. There was one earlier in the year, I believe the Rays were involved, where it actually went a little further than 404 feet, and they doubled someone up on first. Much more traditional than how this went down. But even that ball on the throw into first skipped into first base, so it did technically touch the ground at some point. This one, whether it be after the catch was made and the throw in and then the throw to Contreras and Contreras runs it to third, never touches the ground even a little bit at all. So I guess, they don't have the flew into double play. So it'll go into the book as a grounded into double play. Just something, if you watched it live, you'll never, ever forget. Just mass chaos. And the call right away by Joe Davis, chaos on the bases, was fair. It wasn't Joe Davis, right? He was doing the AL. Who was on the call for the Dodgers last night?
For the NL side, I'll look it up. But my question to you, I think they did a good job on the broadcast, but similar to the NFL, we have Mike Pereira, Dean Blandino on Fox, Terry McAuley does on NBC, Gene Steratore does it as well. Can we get the equivalent of this on a Major League Baseball broadcast, especially as we review getting more plays like this, ABS and all the other conversations? We could have used someone in a booth, especially to pass the time, that you're not trying to have these broadcasters explain it and guess what the umpires are talking about. You can have a real retired umpire that's communicating with New York on the broadcast. To me, that was a glaring omission on this broadcast, even though the broadcast did a really good job.
Yeah, the broadcast did do a good job, but every once in a while, I mean, if you go back to that Dodgers Mets call with Wayne Randazzo and other guys in the booth for Apple, it didn't seem like they were aware of the rule, at least right away. So they could use some help with some of the things that you don't see that often. The amazing thing about baseball, how it's been played for so long, and the fact in 162 games a year, 30 teams, the fact that you can still see something that you've never seen before every day is just incredible. It's such a involved sport. But yeah, that idea, I haven't heard that, and I like it, because here's the thing. Those guys, whether it be the Mike Pereiras of the world, Dean Blandinos for football, they have such an easy job because it's only once in a while they have to bring them in. Mostly they're just sitting there watching the game. And I think it'd be the same for baseball, but it could be useful for entertainment purposes. I would suggest Angel Hernandez, because it would be hilarious. He might not even know what the actual rules are, but it'd be good comedy.
So as far as they want to give love on the TBS side of things, Brian Anderson does play-by-play. Jeff Francoeur and Ron Darling went out there. Lauren Shahadi's doing the field reporter. So shout out to TBS crew. They did a really good job doing this. But looking ahead to game 2 quickly over here, we have a must-win, as you mentioned. The Brewers will send out Freddie Peralta to the mound on Tuesday night, hoping to even the series. But the Dodgers will answer with Yoshinobu Yamamoto, who has been amazing, who has not allowed a run in the last 19 innings himself. Peralta has some history with the Dodgers this year. He faced them twice in the regular season. He won both of the starts. We talked about it on our Twitter pages about there's the season series. The Brewers have taken it. And I mean, obviously that monkey's off their back. They beat the Brewers already last night. But this is a pitcher that has been successful. Peralta also has been significantly better at home than on the road during the regular season. That trend has held up in his 2 starts against the Cubs in the division series. So I fully expect Peralta to give him every chance to win this game. We have to see if the offense can show up against Yamamoto, who I mentioned before. Emphasis on has not allowed a run in the last 19 innings. He's been lights out.
Well, you said 19 innings, but I believe the Phillies touched him up, didn't he? Maybe that was regular season and his first series, because I believe the Phillies in Game 3 actually touched him up a bit in LA.
Oh, that is true.
That's the one game that the Phillies won. But still, you're right. But prior to that, Yamamoto was pitching as well as anyone for the last month or 2 of the season. Flirted with complete games, no hitters a couple times in a row before Dodgers bullpen, like I mentioned before, kind of screwed him. If you look at Yamamoto, it's interesting because, like we said, he did get touched up at Dodger Stadium by the Phillies. But on the road, he's a better road pitcher. 3.04 ERA at home, 2.13 on the road in 18 starts this year. Against Milwaukee, only faced him once this year, and Milwaukee got him out of the game real quick. This was in LA, so a little different circumstance, but he only went 2/3 of an inning Gave up, let's see, 3 earned runs, 5 runs total on 4 hits. So it looks like there was some bad defense involved. Gave up a home run, 2 walks, did not strike out anyone. So with that in mind, if you're the Brewers, you have to be relatively confident. Now, I'm trying to find when that game was. It was July 7th.
Right after the All-Star break, because that's when both series happened.
Okay, so they're July 7th at Milwaukee. So I was wrong. It was actually in Milwaukee. For some reason, I thought it was at home, but in Milwaukee. So a similar circumstance here. I mean, it's his worst start of the year. If you look, the start before he went 7 innings, 1 run. The start after he went 7 innings, no runs. So it wasn't like he was in a complete funk going into this series or going into that game or coming out of it. He kind of bookended it pretty well. So maybe the Brewers go into tonight with some confidence. On the other end with Freddie Peralta, I mean, he's their guy, man. He's their guy. We talk so much, and we're going to talk more when Jordan Hall joins us in about 13 minutes or so about Tarik Skubal kind of going into a lame duck year with the Tigers and how that's going to present itself. Freddie Peralta's in the same situation, right? He goes into next year with his last contract year for the Brewers, and we know how the Brewers typically handle that. They typically trade these guys, whether it's Corbin Burns, Josh Hader. The only exception that I can think of is Willy Adames, offensive player. So is Freddie Peralta a Brewer next year? We don't know. This is a huge start for him. He's had a relatively decent time against the Dodgers. Mookie Betts is only 1 for 12 against him in his career. That one hit is a home run. Shohei Ohtani is a player to watch tonight. He's had some decent success against Peralta, 3 for 9, 2 home runs. So they're looking to get Ohtani started. This could be a guy that he sees pretty decently. But overall, Dodgers hitters are only hitting .216 collectively off of Freddie Peralta. So you got to hope Freddie Peralta goes out there and is absolute nails for the Brewers, who are down 1-0 right now at home.
Yeah, and as we look forward to the ALCS with obviously the travel day ahead of us in between, we have Seattle surging to a 2-0 lead, taking home field advantage away from Toronto. And we could go a whole bunch of different directions about this. And I definitely want to put some love on Bryce Miller, who changed the face of this series with the travel day and all the tired eyes that were approaching Toronto. And that was all the conversation leading up to the game, that Toronto was going to be having the advantage because who were they pitching out there? They had to expend in a 15-inning game of getting all their pitchers out there, and Bryce Miller changed the whole script. And Dan Wilson handed the ball to him, and this guy turned back the clock. He carved up Toronto's lineup with the fastball late, obviously gave up the home run to George Springer, but other than that, it was quiet. And offensively, Seattle did what it did all October. It waited out mistakes and pounced, and we saw them get the win in game 1 and then followed up with a statement game in game 2. Canadian Thanksgiving, as I mentioned, of all days, there was a big piece of energy in the air that was very nervous from the Toronto Blue Jay fans. And outright 10-3, 3-run home runs flattened the Blue Jays team that suddenly looked honestly ordinary. And this feels like a team of destiny right now, especially when you have Trey Savage give up the 3 runs in the first, and then the Blue Jays offense answers. And then on top of it, Jorge Polanco, this guy has been nails for this team. This guy, we talk about understated heroes, guys that you don't expect to be the hero. Jorge Polanco has a little bit more of a resume than some of the understated heroes we've seen in the history of the postseason, but he's the guy. He homered twice off Tarik Skubal in the ALDS. He walked off in game 5 in the 15th inning, and now he's driven a run in 5 straight postseason series. His 8 RBIs is already a tie for the 3rd most in Mariners playoff history. So according to MLB's Sarah Langs, his 4 go-ahead plate appearances tie Ken Griffey Jr. for the most in a single postseason by any Mariner. He's in rare air. And I understand there's not a huge sample size of Mariners postseason, but still, this is a guy that they win a World Series, they might as well put a statue of him out there.
Yeah, and here's the thing, man. It's an interesting case because he was on the Mariners last year and was really, really bad. He had a really bad season. And if you remember on the Twins all those years, he was a very good offensive player for the most part. Streaky here and there, but like he put up some really solid numbers for the Minnesota Twins over a good amount of years. And obviously he goes to the Mariners and has a bad season his first year there. And you can kind of just go with the whole narrative of like, oh, some guys just can't hit in Seattle. We've heard that before. He was hurt last year. I don't think he was healthy the entire year. They choose to re-sign him. They were telling a story on the air last night that like he had to have his doctor like write letters so teams could see like, hey, seriously, he's healthy. His knee is good. Like had to go extra lengths because there was just no market for him. Like nobody wanted to touch him last year. The Mariners end up deciding to bring him back. I think a lot of Mariners fans probably saw that. and rolled their eyes like, this guy again? Now, I will give a shout out to our guy, Brady Farkas, who seemed to have been a big fan of it the entire time. If you go back and look at his coverage of the Mariners or his old tweets. But a lot of Mariner fans and analysts were panning the idea of bringing Polanco back. What he's doing in the postseason is not exactly new. If you look at Fangraph's clutch factor for the season, 2025, he is the number one clutch factor of all MLB. Freddie Freeman is behind him afterwards, but he is up there at the very, very top, all players for the entire season. So this guy's got ice in his veins. And then on the Blue Jays side of things, I mean, here's a stat. The Blue Jays offense after the second inning this series, so the second inning of game one, they've gone 1 for 41 with 0 extra base hits, 5 walks, and 8 strikeouts. Like we were talking about with the Blue Jays after the Yankees series, and they deserved it, was these guys are unbelievable, making contact, not striking out, putting the ball in play. They can do everything offensively. They have gone so cold at the wrong time. Even though they have been able to put some runs on the board and answer, they just have not been able to prolong it throughout an entire game. And unless the pitching is perfect, that's just not going to work. I'm not a sky is falling person for the Blue Jays right now. I know a lot of people are. They thought if they lost game 2, the series was over. I think I said this about the Mariners in the ALDS when they split the series at home and then went to Detroit. I said, I think they might be able to relax on the road. I think that might actually happen for the Blue Jays. I know they're a good home team, but I think maybe getting away might be able to clear their heads and say, I mean, we have nothing to lose now. We're on the road. People expect us to get swept at this point. Let's just go out and play. With that being said, we know how good the Mariners pitching is. And like when their offense is playing this well, mixed with a really good pitching staff, and we know how good Matt Brash and Andres Munoz have been at the back end of the bullpen. They've been incredible. It's a tough team to beat, even if the Blue Jays come over to Seattle and do start hitting a little better. It's a tough situation for them right now. I like the Mariners pitching that they have left much better than what the Blue Jays have left at this point. And it was shocking to see the best American League home team go down 2-0 at home. But I don't think the series is over quite yet. But we're tipping the scales closer and closer to thinking that way.
No, I agree with that. And losing 2 at home, like we said, history is there for a team to overcome it, but takes a special crew. And it seems like magic is on the side of the Seattle Mariners. And Toronto's October and the offense specifically, as you mentioned, has hit a wall. So the offense was averaging 8.5 runs per game against the Yankees, and they only have 2 extra base hits in 2 games. So, I mean, the guys out there, Guerrero's not hitting, Dalton Varsho's not hitting, Alejandro Kirk, these guys have been absolutely neutralized. And you give credit to Seattle's pitching. But even with the roof open and the crowd at full throttle, Seattle's pitching staff is thriving here, and they're controlling every inning after the second. You know, George Springer's doing his part, leading off the game, setting the tone, and we saw them get some runs on the board and answering for Trey Savage, struggling in the first. But now we have Seattle's waiting for them. Game 3 returns to T-Mobile Park on Wednesday night, which this building will be shaking by first pitch. You can imagine that they are waiting for this. You mentioned the pitching matchup. George Kirby will face Shane Bieber in game 3, and Luis Castillo is lined up for game 4. And Brian Wu, potentially healthy again, could join the team later in the series with the pec inflammation we saw shut him down later in the year. Moral of the story here, Seattle's 2 wins from its first pennant since its franchise was born in 1977. The same ones who filled the ballpark, they had the mantra, refuse to lose, nearly 30 years ago. I'm sure everybody can feel it. You mentioned Brady Farkas. All you can think about is fans have been waiting for a long time. JP Crawford is the longest tenured Mariner. He was talking about this, obviously not looking ahead. He said, we know what's in front of us. We're not done yet. And the mantra of like Cal Riley saying, we might as well go win the whole fucking thing. Like this feels like, I know they don't make the season DVDs anymore, but it feels like Jorge Polanco, the heartbeat in 1995 was Griffey, 2001 was Ichiro, and now 2025 is Jorge Polanco's steady hand here. So it's cool to see. And if you don't have a rooting interest watching, and I know a lot of Yankee fans are dunking on the Blue Jays because you see in Rogers Center, there was a lot of the fans wearing the Yankees lose jersey. And listen, I mean, both these fan bases are passionate. They love baseball, and I'm hoping for a good series. At the end of the day, I don't want to see 4-game series and then a World Series that's similar. I want to see 7-game series, a battle of attrition to get there. Both these teams have fire, and I'd imagine John Snyder's going to have this team ready to go on the road on tomorrow night.
Yeah, here's the thing. Like we know the Blue Jays can hit. They didn't just forget how to hit. there's a thing in baseball, especially in a playoff series, where you're about, your back is now on the wall, you're about to be eliminated, where you definitely can start playing differently because you are playing with pressure on you. If the Blue Jays are that kind of group, then they're done here. But if they can just be level-headed, forget it, be a goldfish, right? Short-term memory, go on and just play like you always play, things should eventually snap back into them. A team that has the statistics that they do throughout the year of batting average and on-base percentage and lack of K percentage, that is a winning formula for baseball. We've talked about their approach this year and how much it's helped them. So that can snap back really quickly. Every team, even the best of them, can have 2 really bad games in a row. So obviously that's magnified in the playoffs because each loss takes you closer and closer to elimination. But when you look at it in the grand scheme of things, every team in history can have 2 really bad games in a row. And we saw series like this in the division series that looked like they were going to be over quick. And all of a sudden it's like, no, we're going to make this a little bit of a longer series here. So 7-game series gives them a little more of a chance to bounce back than those 5-game series. So that's another thing in their favor. The thing is, if the Mariners pitching is healthy and out there, it's going to be tough for the Blue Jays at this point to match up with them. Max Scherzer's on the roster. Chris Bassett, it sounds like Bassett's going to be more of a bullpen guy. Scherzer will eventually probably get a start. And obviously for the Mariners, like you mentioned, George Kirby has been okay against the Blue Jays in his career. They've hit 281 against him collectively. The thing is, Anthony Santander is 6 for 15, and he got scratched 2 home runs against George Kirby. So you take, maybe, unless he can play, that's one of your best hitters against him. If he can't play in game 3, you're taking out a big portion of your hits against Kirby. So it's pressure time here. We'll see what happens.
And we'll definitely be covering all of what happens in game 3, see if the Blue Jays can make this a series. And all we know is JP Crawford's calling Jorge Polanco George Bonds, and we'll see a lot of George Bonds jerseys out there in T-Mobile Park. But I want to welcome in Jordan Hall from the Eat 'em Up podcast. We're going to talk all things Tigers. What's up, Jordan? How you doing, man?
I'm good. Thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate it.
So, Jordan, welcome back here.
Well,
I believe
we had
you
on here. You last were on.
Go ahead. Sorry, Steve. Go ahead.
I was saying in September 2024, we had you on here talking about the surprise run towards the postseason and all that. So a lot has changed since that time. You guys went in, did your thing, became a formidable American League force in the first half of 2025. And we don't want to eulogize the whole season, because I'm sure you guys have done it on Eat 'em Up Pod, but just a microscopic look at it. Are you feeling sadness right now? What's the feeling right now?
Honestly, the feeling's a little bit of everything. It's proud of a good season. It's lamenting missing out on potentially going further, potentially moves that weren't made, versus the future of the kids coming in that weren't sacrificed for this year. I would say the first day after the 15-inning games, that have been Saturday, there was a lot of anger and frustration and bitterness, but I've slowly let myself come back from that. And now I'm to the point of looking back on the season pretty fondly.
So President of Baseball Operations, Scott Harris, had his end of the year press conference the other day. And he talked about a lot of things, including what you kind of just alluded to with some of the prospects that we haven't seen yet. They're going to be up here at some point next year, according to him, helping out. But the other thing he talked about is he kind of cryptically discussed the trade deadline that was, without saying specific names. We're going to play a clip here for you, and we just want you to react to it from Scott Harris's press conference.
Do I regret not pulling the trigger on the deals that we had access to at the deadline? I don't. And I'll tell you why. I think I'm even more confident now than I was then that the deals that we had access to that we passed on would have frustrated our fans more than not doing the deals. It's really tough in my job right now because I can't share the exact deals for obvious reasons, but I can share some details that hopefully are pretty illuminating. I would tell you that the players that were most closely connected to us via the media would have cost either a player on our postseason roster plus additional pieces, or one of our top prospects plus additional pieces. In some cases, with those deals that were most closely connected to us, those players that were most closely connected to us, those players, some of them didn't perform at all down the stretch, would have been a free agent in 2 months, and would have cost a player on our postseason roster that actually performed better than the player we acquired and was controllable in the future. So think about that for a second. We could have acquired a player who was going to be a pending free agent on the day of the deadline. We probably would have gotten an A on the trade grades on the day of the deadline and probably would have gotten plenty of praise in the coverage, only to see that player not perform well down the stretch and the player we traded perform better than that player this year and be controllable in the future. I don't regret those deals at all.
All right, so give us, as someone who covers the Tigers day in, day out, and as a big fan of theirs, give us your thoughts on what he said, but also try to translate what he's alluding to for the rest of us.
All right, so let's take a step back on Scott Harris just in general. Scott Harris is an incredibly divisive figure among Tiger fans. On our show, I love him. I think Alex could take or leave him. A lot of fans think that he fancies himself the smartest man in the room, which honestly, I think he probably does. That being said, I kind of want the smartest guy in the room as my GM. So with all of that said, I think he is talking about the fact that there were a lot of names that were bandied about around the trade deadline, and they were all going to cost us, colloquially, an arm and a leg. Guys that we don't want to get rid of, guys that are part of the future plans. That being said, could that have made the team better? Yeah, sure, maybe. But when you look at how things transpired down the stretch, like, is this a team that was actually capable of winning a World Series? I mean, a team that can do what we did down the stretch strikes me as a hard no in that regard. If that is in the range of outcomes for this team, why are you risking somebody like Max Clark, somebody like Josue Briseño to try to add one or two pieces that, if we really cut through all of the optimism and the hopium, like, they're not going to be the difference between making a World Series, winning a World Series, or winning a series or two. Like, obviously we want to go an extra round. We want to get past Cleveland. We want to get past Seattle, get to the ALCS, a place that we hadn't gone before. That being said, this is more of a holistic project. This is not the freewheeling deal days of Mike Ilitch. This is a build responsible era. And if you try to take a shortcut, especially on a hope and a prayer like this season, I think it comes back to bite you in the butt. And I think that's kind of what Scott, henceforth known by me as Scotty, is referring to here in this clip.
So this would be a bit of guesswork here, but when he's saying things like there was this player that we could have acquired, but it would have cost us an arm and a leg, and he didn't perform anyway, do you have a guess as to who he's talking about? For me, it's like the first name I think of is a guy who's still playing, and Eugenio Suarez, who's struggled mightily since being dealt. And then a two-part question, he also talks about, and this player that we kept ended up performing better. So it doesn't sound like he's talking about the prospects. Of course, they could have been included, but any guesses as to who that would be that he might be mentioning, even though it's, again, just a guess?
Guesswork. It's definitely Troy Melton. I can't say that for sure, but Troy Melton is the name that I think he's referring to there. And to his credit, he was unbelievable. Like, it is absolutely true that it's unlikely that anybody we moved him for was going to perform better than he did in the playoffs. That being said, I'm assuming that he's referring to bullpen help. In the first part of your question, obviously the lineup just absolutely hit the toilet the second half of the year. But at the trade deadline, that wasn't a concern. Everyone was thinking, how many bullpen arms can we bring in? How many back ends of the rotation arms can we bring in? So I can't help but think that's obviously, there were plenty of people that wanted Eugenio Suarez, and myself included. But I think that he is actually referring to bullpen help there. And just like you say, like, I don't know, McKinstry was pretty bad in the playoffs. Has Suarez been any better? I wouldn't necessarily say so. That being said, we saw McKinstry for 2 full series, and we've seen Suarez now for 1 and change. So kind of apples and oranges.
So you've had a few days to just digest all of this, and turning back the clock to July 8th, Detroit had the best record in baseball, 61-32. They led the AL Central by 14 games. You know the story at this point. Then they went 28-37 the rest of the way, finishing 89-69. Honestly, showing some heart by, first of all, falling into a playoff spot and then winning the division series against Cleveland. Got to give them some credit here. The offense, like you said, in game 5, lasting 15 innings with Detroit, striking out 19 times, going 1 for 19 with runners in scoring position. It's not going to get the job done. But that all being said, where does this ultimately reveal for you where the Tigers stand as a contender going forward? And now that you've had a few days to digest how you're feeling, sounds like you're pretty level-headed about all of it.
Yeah, I think that it's really good to be objective about the team. You look at the team and you see a lot of guys that I would quantify as flawed but productive players. I mean, honestly, you can start at the top with Riley Greene and Spencer Torkelson. These are not complete players. These are guys that can absolutely be part of a team that does damage, but they can't be your guys that are hitting 3, 4, 5 every single night. Kerry Carpenter, another guy that he is very productive at what he does, hit right-handers. I do think there's actually a little bit more in his bat against lefties than we've seen. I think that we probably will get a chance to see that next year. Dylan Dingler is an unbelievable catcher. He is, I would say, one of the 5 best catchers in baseball. It's just kind of a down position. That being said, you look in every other position, and these guys are flawed at best, and I don't want to say unplayable at worst, but there's a lot of guys that probably aren't playing significant roles on ALCS World Series level teams. And it's a testament to AJ Hinch that he was able to cobble this team together. The buy-in that it takes to get guys to play a very specific role, like he did with guys like Jahmai Jones and Andy Ibanez, and have success like that. But top to bottom, talent-wise, it's not on par with the teams that spend. It's not on par with the Phillies, the Dodgers, even the Jays and the Mariners. Like, they haven't spent substantially more than we have, but they are substantially more talented through the lineup. And then you flip over to the rotation, and there's a lot of young talent, and it is all built on what do you do with Tarik Skubal. If he is not part of this team, the rotation is extremely high upside and extremely low downside. We just don't know where the floor is when it's a rotation of Melton and Job and Reese Olson and Casey Mize and probably Jack Flaherty. We just don't know what to expect from that. So yeah, I think that this revealed that this is a team that is certainly capable of winning a division. Didn't obviously this year, but certainly capable of it. A team that is capable of gritting their way to through a playoff series or two, but without a substantial infusion of talent. It is just flat out the cut below that.
So you mentioned the name. It's the main event of this conversation today. Tarik Skubal. Before Detroit fans could even eulogize the season, people like us are already tweeting out stuff about Tarik Skubal and what's going to happen with him in the offseason. He's about to win his second Cy Young, more than likely, unless Garrett Crochet pulls off a slight upset. He was unbelievable in the playoffs. Certainly not Tarik Skubal's fault that they're not there any longer. Scott Boras, a big piece of this conversation. We know what he does. He wants to look for giant mega deals for these types of guys. Skubal's going into his last year, kind of lame duck situation. Like I said, just put together 2 all-time seasons. A few questions here. How do you think he and Scott Boras are approaching this as of now? And in your mind, as a Detroit fan, how are you hoping the front office handles this?
So let's jump into Tarik and Scott Boras's mind. I will never take management side on something like this. Tarik Skubal has been the best pitcher in baseball for 2 years. He deserves to get every single penny he is owed. I don't begrudge him that one bit, and I don't think Scott Boras is going to take any sort of discount for him to go anywhere, and I think that that's perfectly fine. That being said, I'll give you a few facts that I believe about this situation. I guess it's statements that I believe. I guess calling them facts is probably a bit much. First of all, he is almost certainly going to reach free agency, the open market. He is almost certainly going to get north of $400 million. And lastly, there is no world in which the Detroit Tigers are handing out a contract of $400 million to anybody. I believe that deep in my soul. The Tigers haven't been in the top 20 in baseball in payroll since Mike Ilitch passed. It's pretty easy to see a break there as to why spending is down. I think what it comes down to for me, for the Skubal thing, is if he was on any other team, I would not even dream of being in the conversation of signing him. Like, that is just where we are at. I don't think that him coming up through the Tigers plays any sort of role in deciding where he goes. And that kind of leaves you with, we're not going to re-sign him. You know what I mean? Like, there is no, I just don't think sentimentality is going to play a huge role here when you have $400 and $500 million being bandied about. And I don't necessarily blame him. So at that point, it kind of leaves you at a point of, well, you have three options. You can either sell now, sell at the deadline, or try to build around him to make a go at a World Series right now, and just get the competitive balance pick when he walks. I think you can make a case for all three. That being said, I think it's least likely that we really pony up, add 3, 4, 5 pieces that make this a championship level team. So I'm probably pretty firmly in trade him this offseason category.
Do you think the best time is the winter meetings where there is some desperation to make a splash? Because it sounds like even in the postseason press conference with Scott Harris, that he's not worried about the good grace of the headlines afterwards. He was talking about winning the deadline hypothetically. So, the Tigers are going to get a lot of heat if they do this. But as you mentioned, as a fan, it's about the long-term stability of this franchise. And if you can infuse a lot of young talent that's controllable, this team could be left in a really good spot for the foreseeable future. Think about what Mason Miller netted for the Athletics, and now watching what's going to develop underhand. Like, yes, in the moment it makes a splash, and whatever team gets Tarik Skubal is going to get the best pitcher in baseball for the next couple of years. But the back end of that contract, could the Tigers sustain something like that realistically if ownership just said, we're going to hand out the contract that we're never going to hand out? Because as you mentioned, they haven't really handed out a big contract since Miguel Cabrera, as far as like long-term.
I mean, Javi is probably your next closest, and obviously that's had mixed results.
But in general, I just feel like there's going to be a lot of heat on this front office if you trade him, because you're trading quote unquote generational talent. But it feels like Scott Harris made it clear it's not about grabbing the headlines. It's about the sustainability of this team as a playoff team, because this is the first time they made the playoffs back-to-back years, as you know, since 13-14. So this is a long time coming.
Yeah, and that's why Scott is such a divisive figure. He does not ingratiate himself to the fans. And honestly, I kind of love that, because like you say, winning the quote unquote winning the deadline, that doesn't win ball games. That doesn't, it might put butts in seats, but that's not going to make us a better team now in 26, 28, whatever. And he has the guts to do things that are wildly unpopular, like trading for Kyle Finnegan and Rafael Montero. That was not met with a whole lot of enthusiasm. But I think it's great that he is willing to stick with his guns. And that being said, he is going to take heat regardless of what he does at this point. He is in the midst of a really tough position. It's not necessarily his fault. Like, it's just kind of what comes with being the president of baseball operations for the Tigers in the winter of 2025. But he will have to make a decision, and not making a decision is obviously making a decision. I do think that it has to be the right deal. We haven't seen a whole lot of him pulling the trigger on major league trades. We don't know exactly his skill level when it comes to negotiating a trade of this magnitude. Like, he just hasn't really done it. He's been far better at working the waiver wire, taking in outcasts from other teams. But yeah, he's going to have to make a decision. And to answer your question, I do think the winter is probably the right time. You're giving the team that's trading for him more Skubal starts. I mean, that's kind of just currency that they would be losing by waiting. B, nobody is ruled out. We don't have, dreams run wild in the spring and the winter. Like, anybody can think that they're some sort of contender. And I do think that the fan base needs to be realistic about what we're looking at. He is, like you say, a generational pitcher. He has only 1 year of control left. It's not going to be the Juan Soto trade where they bring back a Mackenzie Gore, a CJ Abrams, like all these guys. But I do think that there's every chance to get maybe one hitter and one pitcher that stick right now, that are helpful players right now, and maybe a handful of prospects that can ease the transition down the road. But that being said, like, you look at the 26-man playoff roster, there is so much room to lengthen the lineup, lengthen the bullpen. Like, I would prefer these to be real high impact guys, but if they were a couple 3-WAR players that just make up a position better, like, I think you're in a position that you have to do that.
So as far as the Skubal deal at the end of it, and I think free agency deals for pitchers rarely age well. I think CC Sabathia for the Yankees aged really well by the end of it. Typically, you're paying for the first 3-4 years of the deal, and then at the end of it, we watched the Pujols deal as far as hitters go, tail end at the other half of it, where the Angels think that they can just pay him right now peanuts to become the manager because they want to pay off. Like, we gave you all this money for doing nothing with one playoff appearance, but. That being said, do you see a team regretting signing him if it means, like, all right, he's going to get, are we looking at 8 to 10 years of $400 million? Like, is there a regret from a franchise down the line? Like, how forecast this for me?
I do think he ages well. He has a little bit of a high intensity delivery, but he's such a physical specimen. Like, he's a big, solid dude. I think that ages well. He's also incredibly smart. Even if he's not throwing 101 anymore, like, he's going to find ways to get guys out. That being said, like you say, almost all of these pitching contracts come back to bite you. That being said, if you give him a 10-year deal and you get 5 good years, I think you're probably doing okay. And I also have the personal belief that, like, in 5 years, are we even still using, like, currency? Are we, like, trading batteries? I don't know what, inflation and the future of the world looks like. Like, I don't know. If you can go get yourself a World Series in the first 5 years of that, like, I think that whatever comes in the second half is probably worthwhile. That being said, inevitably teams usually end up regretting these massive contracts unless you get a World Series at some point in the first half.
I want to add Scherzer into the good deals, by the way. Free agency was pretty kind to him, and he
one of the best.
That wound up working out for the Nationals as well. So it is rare, but it can work out. And I guess if it gets you a World Series like it did for the Nats, it's like, okay, well, I think we can all accept that it was a deal. But do you have, and as we move on from Skubal, we will talk about the offense a little bit and, like, your wish list for the offseason. Is there a matching minor league system that you see, like, if you had to make the deal of looking at pie in the sky? You mentioned hitter, ready and willing in the lineup, maybe a bullpen piece, maybe a starting pitcher. Is there a farm system that you look at as, like, that's the perfect match for us?
I mean, if we're getting pie in the sky, I feel like the Brewers are probably the big one there with Jesus Made and I want to say Luis Ortiz. I don't think that's right. They have 2 really, really high upside shortstop prospects that I would love to get my hands on. That being said, I think that the Dodgers are probably the right call. I believe on pipeline they have 8 top 100 prospects. I mean, just what they need, more ammo. They have plenty of pitching. Like, I feel like I will preface all of this by saying that I haven't spent a lot of time looking into this, but I feel like off the top of my head that makes a lot of sense, even though it would be pretty well torturous to see him go to LA, even though he probably will get one there. So I would like to see that.
That's part of the problem that lies within too. It's like we talk about, take your pick from which system you'd love, like their top 3 guys or something like that. But in reality, the pool of teams that can trade for Skubal is probably a lot smaller. A Brewer is such a loaded farm system, but are they going to be able to sign Skubal to a mega deal? No. So do they make that trade? Probably not.
Probably not.
So you're limited. You end up being limited to, like you said, the teams like the Dodgers, Yankees, Mets, on and on, Phillies. Yeah. Right. We're going to the big market teams, which, I mean, listen, Steve's a Yankee fan. I'm a Mets fan. But as baseball fans, I think we both agree, as much as we'd love to have these guys, these stars, we also don't want baseball to be the situation where the Detroit Tigers of the world become like a farm system for these 4 or 5 mega teams, because it's not good for the sport. But when you're looking for that trade, like you said, with the only 1 year in the deal, if someone like the Brewers want Skubal for a year, I mean, that it's almost doesn't serve a purpose because they're not going to pony up what you actually want for him.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, it almost has to be one of those big market teams, either one of the New York teams out west or Trader Dave in Philly. I feel like those are kind of the obvious, or who knows, San Diego. They've been known to swing some.
If they have anything left, yeah,
exactly. The cupboard's a little bit bare, but maybe they can reach back in there and find something.
I think that is Jackson Merrill. I think we could work something out there.
Oh, I mean, that wouldn't be bad. That wouldn't be bad. Yeah.
Offensively, Detroit's October shortcomings were stark. You mentioned the 607 team OPS, 0 for 23 stretch for the middle of the order. For you mentioned extending the lineup. Is that the most impactful change you'd like to see this offseason to bridge the gap between the elite pitching we saw and consistent run production, or is it something different?
Yeah, it has to be offensive. And honestly, if you'd asked me this on July 4th or something like that, I probably wouldn't have said that. I would have said locking up Skubal, like continuing to add pitching depth. But the second half of the year, it was so apparent where our shortcomings are. I kind of had a niggling feeling throughout the season that while you could look at the Tigers and think offensively 1 through 13, that this is a really good team, that if you actually looked like matchup to matchup, man to man, one guy versus one guy, how it usually is in the playoffs, that this actually was a team that was a little bit short. Turns out we were very short. The analysis came up a little short there. But there are simply guys that on winning teams, on really good teams, they're bench players, they're role player, whatever. We can't have 150 games of Parker Meadows in center field at his current level. Obviously, he has never played 150 games due to health anyways. But if we don't get more from center field, it's going to be an issue. If we don't get more from right field when Kerry Carpenter's DHing, it's an issue. Third base, Zach McKinstry, all-star Zach McKinstry had an unbelievable year for him. But I would be lying if I said I want to see him as an everyday starter again in 2025. Like he had a great start to the year and he finished really, really poorly. And then eventually something's going to have to be done with second base if McGonigle's not ready to go to start the year. And then you still have the question of Javi at shortstop. He's the kind of guy that you can have in a lineup, but I don't know. You can't have too many guys like him that are just so wildly streaky together when you already have Riley and Torque and Carpenter, who all just ride roller coasters throughout the year. So yeah, long answer to say bats are absolutely the priority in this offseason. And I'll be very interested to see just how active and aggressive Scotty will be when it comes to adding a few more bats, especially right-handed.
So I'll let Devin wrap this up in a second, but you guys are covering the Detroit Tigers in such a great way in the Eat 'em Up podcast. So make sure you guys check them out over there. You guys do a fantastic job. Just curious your perspective. Obviously, last year we discussed, we had you on September 2024. There was the surprise run to the postseason after selling and all that good stuff that we saw. What was the tenor as far as podcasting go for you guys? Was it more fun as the surprise underdog, or was it more fun to go in as the favorite of the AL Central?
I mean, it's hard to kick on the run last year. Like that's realistically something that we're never going to see again. Like it was absolutely out of this world special. Like that's something that I'll remember till my dying days. That being said, the first half of this year was pretty freaking fun too. Like you get to the All-Star break and that was about as fun as a first half could possibly be. Obviously, the second half wore on everybody in the organization and everybody in the fan base, physically, mentally, emotionally. But like, I don't know. I feel like baseball's kind of like life. Like if you can get through the season with a few things that you remember that really make an impact on you, like you're kind of doing good. And we certainly had that this season, even right down to the unfortunate very end that I will remember that game forever. And as the years go, it will become more and more fond that I remember it just because it was an absolute classic.
Speaking of that, I just have a couple quick ones left for you, and then we'll let you go here. That 15-inning game, as I was watching it, and we watched the whole thing start to finish. Actually, Steve and I were recording, and we tried to stay on for as long as we could because we did a live episode. And after the 10th, we're like, all right, screw it. We don't know how long this is going. We'll see you guys later. But I stayed up after and watched the rest. And as the game was going on, as a non-fan of either team, just a baseball fan, every time the Mariners would get guys on base and then somehow ground into another double play, I kept on texting Steve like, that's it. They're going to lose. The Mariners are going to lose. They cannot do this many times and still win. Were you sitting there as a Tiger fan thinking like, all right, we got out of that. Like this game is ours now?
I don't think I ever thought that. I can't remember who made this analogy. So apologies to whoever it was, but they made reference to the bottom half of all of those innings being like around dark time in I Am Legend, where like all of the things come out of the woodworks to try to eat you up. And that is what every time we didn't score in the top half going to the bottom half felt like. Every time they threatened and somehow Cater Montero got out of it, or somehow Jack Flaherty bullied himself into getting out of the inning. It was like, we cannot do this again. Like the next time we let 2 runners on, like this is the time that is going to get us. And it just kept not happening, obviously, until it did. So no, I wouldn't say at any point I was like, oh man, we got out of that rally. It's our time. It always felt like, phew, we avoided another disaster. I wonder when the next one is. And it was usually the following bottom half of the inning.
So just last question about the offense. Riley Greene seems like he's got to be the star of this team as they're built currently. Big power year from him. RBI numbers great, but he seems almost like he's turned into an all or nothing guy. Very high strikeout rate, big launch angle, uppercut kind of swing. A lot of people now are talking like about their teams needing to contact more because of the Blue Jays' success. We've seen all different fans come out of the woodwork, and suddenly people that didn't care about strikeouts seem to care about strikeouts. With that being said, Scott Harris mentioned needing the team to have a higher contact rate in his press conference. Is he specifically talking about Riley Greene? Are they going to try to get him to bring that rate down a little bit, even if it costs a bit of power for him?
So the interesting thing about Riley Greene is he's now played in 2 more or less full seasons. And he has, or excuse me, 3 more or less full seasons. And he has been several different players to this point in his career. So this year he hit 258 with a 313 on base. Last year he had 262 with a 348 on base. Before this year, he was actually a very high on base guy. He was able to take a walk. He struck out a lot, but no more than your average modern day power hitter. What wasn't there was the power. Obviously, this year he completely sold out. He drove in a ton of runs. He drove the ball out of the ballpark. I'm not entirely sure that we know the type of player that Riley Greene is yet. Like, I wouldn't be surprised at all if he comes into next spring training with that uppercut hack down just a little bit more like, I don't know, just a little bit more of an even plane. And all of a sudden now he's taken another walk or two, and that OBP is back pushing 340, 350. I'm just not sure what we're going to get. That being said, when you combine him and Torque and Kerry Carpenter and several of the other players on the team, there's just such a lack of contact that's being made. So while it is, I agree with Harris that we do need to become a slightly more higher contact team. You kind of didn't build a high contact team. So I don't know exactly how you expect these guys to change their stripes. That being said, when he sets out to get something to acquire something, he usually does. Like he wanted guys that throw strikes. He acquired bullpen arms that throw strikes. He made it so that his starting pitchers were focused on throwing strikes. So if this is something that he's after, I don't really have any doubts that he'll do it. It's just going to be a matter of, are we doing this from the regular racks, or are we going to the sale racks? And by that, I mean, we will be going to the sale racks, of course.
Well, last question from me here. With the playoffs down to 4 teams, tell us in your gut who you think's winning, and then a separate question, who you are rooting for, if at all, out of the last 4 teams.
So not a betting podcast, but I have a pretty strong financial stake in the Dodgers winning the World Series. So I will be, part of me will be rooting for that. Honestly, I have an immense amount of respect for the Mariners. That was an unbelievable series. The fans are really, really good. I love that bullpen. I'm so jealous of that bullpen. So I'll probably be rooting for them. And I do think that the Dodgers will win it. I mean, that's kind of just how the world works now, I think.
Yeah, and then as Devin said, we're going to be wrapping up here, but we did see yesterday that AJ Hinch did sign that extension, so we were remiss if we didn't ask that he signed through 2028 Was there pushback from some of the fan base of the Detroit Tigers that this was a little bit premature? Or is everyone just accepting like the culture is there in place, back-to-back playoff appearances? He said he steadied the ship, even though they collapsed in the second half. They still won a playoff series. What's your thoughts on AJ Hinch?
I'm not the kind of guy that judges other fans. Like, however you want to think, act, behave. Like, I don't care. What do the whole fan thing however you want. But to me, your opinion of AJ Hinch is kind of a litmus test for how intelligent of a fan you are. He is an absolute magician. Like, if you look at I mean, let's take MLB The Show, for example. Like, if you were to look at our roster on MLB The Show, you'd see a lot of guys are like, oh, that is a low overall rating. And he turned this into a team that won 86 games and won a playoff series. He is a master button pusher. He just knows when to do things, how to do things, and how to get guys into situations to succeed. That being said, there are certainly people within the fan base that think that the collapse is on him. To me, that is insane, especially when, like, if you fire somebody, you got to replace them with somebody. Like, it's not like you just remove somebody and like, oh, now we're better. You have to find somebody better. And I don't believe for a second that there's somebody better that we can get than AJ Hinch, and possibly for the situation just at all that is better than AJ Hinch. I'm a huge fan. I like him a lot as a person and as a leader. In addition to, I just think he's a really good baseball manager. So, again, no judgment, but I feel like this is one that if somebody has a slightly different opinion, it actually does make me like, about their baseball intelligence. That being said, I would obviously never say that to their face.
So Jordan, dude, it was a pleasure having you back on here. As we mentioned, it's been over a year since we last had you on here. I'll give you the platform to talk about Eat 'em Up, a Detroit Tigers podcast, and all the great work you guys are doing over there.
Well, thanks. It's been a pleasure. I think you guys are an awesome hang. Anytime you guys need a little Tigers insight, I'm always happy to do it. But yeah, we record every Tuesday night at Eat 'em Up Pod on social. It's not necessarily real heavy on analytics. Like, obviously get into stats in occasion. Like, it's a baseball show. You kind of have to. It's more just a couple guys hanging out, talking about our favorite team. Not overly knee jerk, just kind of level-headed analysis of guys that enjoy each other's company and watching the team. And yeah, things will be a little bit lighter in the off season, of course, unless things happen. And we just posted an episode this morning, kind of summing up the last game and kind of where we think the playoff or the postseason's going. So if you're interested, Eat 'em Up Podcast, and you will see a bright orange tiger as the logo.
Awesome. Well, Jordan, again, if there's something that happens and breaks in the meantime, we'd love to have you back on and talk about Tarik Skubal. If he's extended, if he gets traded, we would love to have you on here. But we'll be back in 1 second to wrap up the podcast. All right. Once again, we want to thank Jordan Hall for joining us and talking all things Detroit Tigers. It was a good eulogy for the season. I think a very level head, Devin, for what their approach to the Tarik Skubal situation is going to hold. And honestly, I think he has the take that a lot of knowledgeable fans should take, and it's about the health of the organization. It may not be popular to let a generational pitcher go, but for an organization like the Tigers, that might be the decision to make.
Yeah, it's a part of baseball, unfortunately, that we see when one of these smaller market teams, and again, I use that word small market kind of loosely, but one of those franchises that are not going to sign the mega deals more than likely has an absolute top 10 player. The conversation immediately becomes, all right, well, how long though can we keep him here? So we'll stay tuned to be determined. But yeah, you're right. Jordan came on with a great perspective, great point of view. It's always interesting to hear his thoughts. And I really didn't know what his perspective was going to be about the Skubal stuff. I tweeted the other day the idea of like, will the Tigers possibly pony up for 10 years and $400 million? And he just replied a very quick no. And that's when I messaged him like, all right, we need you to come on and give us a perspective because I want to hear more. So it's interesting to hear that he's pretty firmly in the camp of belief that the Tigers are not going to pay him. So let's trade him now, not later, not let's try to pony up and put pieces around him and go for a World Series one more time. I think there's just a lot of belief that that's also not something they're going to do. They're not going to build enough around him to make it worth the while of just keeping him here for his last year and then getting nothing much back in return.
Yeah, and I think that the worst case scenario that everybody can agree on is that he walks and you get nothing for it instead of just the compensation pick. Like you need to get something to restock the cupboard for the example of what he gave. Just a bat, you need an arm, you need something to have from him. And it may be unpopular in the moment, but if the Tigers are a sustainable postseason team for the next 5 years because of this trade, I think people would sign up for it. And that's the debate you have to have. You can't win the headlines. You have to just win baseball games, and flags do fly forever. So you have to find a way to win divisions, win pennants, and eventually win a World Series. And unfortunately, they weren't able to get it done with Tarik Skubal in house while he was under control. And I think it was always about the control for the Tigers.
Yeah, no doubt about it. It's a weird situation to look back on. On one hand, you can say, well, we had Skubal and we had Skubal at his very best, and we still came up short 2 years in a row. So what's the difference? But on the other hand, you don't even get as far as you did without Skubal on the team this year. So that's the immediate pushback of that. And Jordan also did a good job of mentioning, like, listen, this is not Juan Soto with multiple years of control left. So don't expect that kind of package for him. There's probably some Tiger fans thinking, hey, I'm down to trade him as long as we get a crazy package back. I don't think that's the situation. You should get a good package back. And like you said, maybe a couple players that are already major leaguers, maybe not stars, but guys that can contribute, and then some high prospects on the back end as well. The shame of it is what we mentioned before. Even though you and I are fans of very big market teams, I do kind of hate that when he says, oh, the Brewers would be the system I would like to look at to get some of their guys. I hate that it's probably not possible because they're just another team that wouldn't be able to pay him long term. That it does get a little annoying that the pool of trade possibilities really ends up being 5, 6, maybe 7 or 8 teams.
Yeah, and I think the one thing we need to drop to you guys out there listening, and also Devin, I think you should be thinking about this too, is what does this do for the Pittsburgh Pirates and Paul Skeens? What does it mean if Tarik Skubal gets traded? And we have that to think about what the package was, and then you have the control of Paul Skeens. Maybe they decide to pull the trigger if they realize they're not signing him. Because if we get the market being set this year or next year, I should say, with Tarik Skubal getting $400+ million, what is Paul Skeens going to get in a few years when he's a free agent? I think that's something the Pirates need to be thinking about right now. And maybe as fan base, you don't want to hear that. But the Pirates, if the smart decision, if you're not going to sign the guy and make the playoffs or win the World Series, maybe it's trading him. And I think that starts to unravel a little ball of wax for everybody thinking about it.
There is this small part of me, and the Skeens thing is a good point too. Who knows what they're doing? The Pirates are the Pirates. Let's just say that. But the one part that scared me is when he mentioned the Phillies and referred to Dave Dombrowski, who Tiger fans are familiar with as Trading Dave or Trader Dave. You know what? We keep on talking about the Phillies almost as like in the past tense of like this Phillies version is gone. Like, there's a world where they say, screw it. We're bringing all our guys back and we're going to trade Andrew Painter and a couple other guys for Tarik Skubal. And we're going to run it back with Tarik Skubal, Zach Wheeler, Christopher Sanchez, and we're going to bring we're going to re-sign Kyle Schwarber. I don't know if they necessarily have it, but the Phillies have some good pieces. And if they were able to trade a couple major league guys along with their highest prospects, that wouldn't blow my mind. I'd be pissed as a Met fan, but there's a part of me that could see them doing that. So I'm saying we're going to prove everybody wrong that this generation of the Phillies team, this version of the Phillies team is done. We're not turning the page. We're just going to reload. They're a team to watch for sure. I know most of the time when you hear Skubal, you hear Dodgers, Yankees, who I don't think have the pieces to trade for him, to be honest. Mets, I do as a Met fan like their system, but I'm probably biased. I don't think they have the situation to trade for him either. Red Sox, maybe. But I think the Phillies are a sneaky possibility there.
Yeah, and I again, going back to what he said about the Soto deal and comparing it to Skeens, to Skubal, with the Skeens piece that he's under control to 2029, how do you not be tempted by what the extraordinary give back would be for the Pirates franchise if you were able to trade Skeens while he's under control? Why wait until 2028 to do what you want to do if we know you're not going to invest in the Pirates team right now that's going to win the World Series? Start to pull that rope towards you and say, at the end of it, shouldn't you restock the cupboard? I understand, like, butts in seats, selling jerseys, and the Pirates are what they are, but the Skubal thing sets the tone a little bit. If they're willing to trade Skubal, especially being a team that's been in the playoffs back-to-back years, they've come close, quote unquote, even though they've collapsed at the end of the year. I don't know. The Skeens thing definitely you look at it as a smart business decision, it might be to trade Paul Skeens while he has the 4 years of control.
Yeah, I mean, my thought, well, the Pirates are going to convince themselves that they're going to have a really good pitching staff next year, which they very well may with the Paul Skeens of the world. Hopefully, Jared Jones is healthy. Bubba Chandler starts from the get-go. They have other pieces there that are really good pitching staff. They're going to convince themselves that they'll be able to win enough with a really good starting pitching staff, and then they're going to probably not do much on offense or the bullpen, add around the edges, and they're going to be wrong again, more than likely. But with the Skubal stuff, I think Jordan probably knows way more about the Tigers and has a feel for that front office than we do, obviously. But in my mind, my gut tells me they're going to hold on to him for the last year of his contract. And he all the word is that he wants to reach free agency. I've been pushing that. I think they're going to want the extension now, or trade me to a team that'll give me an extension now, kind of like the Garrett Crochet stuff. I've mentioned that last week. But now I'm seeing more and more Detroit reporters and radio people say, two things are for sure. One, Skubal and Boras are going to want to reach free agency. So that tells me that some of these other teams might be scared off. Like, wait, if we trade for him, we want to be able to negotiate with him right away. But apparently it sounds like he's going to want all the teams in the pool to have a shot at him after next year, which might convince some teams like, all right, I'm not going to trade a bunch of pieces for him if he's not going to be willing to negotiate with us in good faith for an extension before free agency, because then I might lose him anyway. And maybe I'd rather just be one of those teams in the pool competing for him in that situation. So there is a strong part of me that thinks they run it back with him one more time. Tiger fans are probably right. They're probably not going to add a bunch of pieces to try to make that one more run. But I could see him. I do think he ends up there, and this ends up being all for nothing, kind of like the talk about the trade. And he ends up in a Tiger uniform for all of next year. The one piece, and maybe we should ask Jordan about it, is if Alex Bregman opts out, there's a lot of talk about the Tigers and AJ Hinch going to get him last year. I wonder if that actually becomes a thing this year. And if it is, I think that's the only thing they would do for the most part as far as a big deal in the offseason.
Do you think the Bregman piece extends the lineup enough that they could potentially compete in
No.
this ALCS with Seattle? No?
No, but I think they could sell it a little bit or talk themselves into it, or AJ Hinch could talk Scott Harris into it just on a leadership level, that kind of stuff. But I don't think that's enough for them to break through.
Yeah, I mean, there's also just the pie in the sky, the utopian society that we live in the winter, where everybody believes they're a contender. And I think that was important for him to mention, where you have this team that believes that he's the final piece. But if you mentioned just this urgency to want to sign him, I think it's more apparent in the winter, because then it's like, all right, we have to figure out an extension. But if you have a team that's on the cusp that can win a World Series, like if you're a team that hasn't, let's just say Milwaukee doesn't win the NLCS and they want to get eliminated, and they get back to this point, best record in baseball again at the July mark, Tarik Skubal could be that final piece, and they don't care if they re-sign him. Almost a CC Sabathia effect of like, give us the guy, give us the horse to push across the finish line.
Right. Yeah, I guess so. It's tough to predict. There are a lot of different ways it could go. And I know a team he didn't mention in any way was the Cubs. And honestly, the Cubs should be at the front of the line for his services if they put him on the market, because they do still, even though they've traded some of it away, have a really good system that they could trade from. They absolutely need starting pitching. They're starving for it. Their offense is pretty damn good, but they won't, because they just already did that for Tucker. It didn't work out. Now it pretty much seems like this is going to change over the next month, I think, back and forth, but this is a whole nother conversation. It seems like Kyle Tucker's out the door already. And
yeah, for sure.
Also, I've been shocked, and maybe my finger just wasn't on the pulse, at how many Cubs fans are kicking him out of the door. Like, thank God this guy's not on my team anymore. Like, go search Kyle Tucker on X. And I know X is maybe not the best thing to compare to the real world, because it's the loudest people tweeting on there. But there are so many people, the second the Cubs season was done, was like, thank God I don't have to watch Kyle Tucker play for my baseball team anymore. I was shocked by it. But again, maybe a conversation for another day down the road.
I heard Eno talking about Kyle Tucker's free agency and potentially where he would go, and saying that the results don't match the bat speed. And he's been saying that all along, that the bat speed is a little bit slower than the results he's been getting. And yeah, you could talk about the injuries, the calf loom large again. This is a guy who was maybe not playing through injuries, and that was some of the criticism the Chicago Cubs fan base had, that he wasn't showing the hardiness it takes to play in a gritty city like that. And I think that's unfair. He was hurt all year, and we watched him as he got right. He started to hit again. And wherever he winds up, I think he might get a Cody Bellinger type of deal somewhere where he wants to reinvent himself and get paid. Could wind up with the Yankees. The Yankees are trying to redefine their outfield, and maybe there's a world where Kyle Tucker comes to them at quote unquote a discount because they were looking to pay top dollar for him, maybe trade and sign him to replace Soto. Maybe in the world that he comes to the Yankees, similar to the Bellinger thing, where the Cubs just let him go essentially, and Bellinger's going to get paid this year, maybe by your New York Mets.
Maybe. I think there's going to be plenty of suitors for Cody Bellinger's services. Yeah, you're right. Tucker, I could see kind of taking a shorter term deal with some options to kind of make another run at it, have a huge season, and go back to free agency. But yeah, I kind of get what the Cubs fans might be thinking about that durability. It's not that he gets hurt constantly, but it does seem like when he gets hurt, it takes him a long time to get back. And that could be unfair. That might be an unfair statement. But we've seen it like kind of with the shin, I think it was in Houston last year, and now this year in Chicago. I think that would be the knock on him, which might scare some teams away from him. You don't want to give this hundreds of millions of dollars to a guy that you think takes too long to come back from certain things.
I heard that somebody they were talking about the Tucker deal and thinking that his camp was wanting a $300 million plus contract based on what Soto got. Some people are saying that his number won't even start with a 3. It might be mid 2s or even like low 2s, or maybe just one fit. Like they're looking at this as a completely different player because of the season he had.
Oh yeah, I think he definitely hurt himself this year as far as the estimates we were hearing after the Soto deal, which is exactly why Houston traded him. Like, oh, we're getting out of Dodge now. Compared to what we're hearing now, I think people watched the season he had. Obviously, he was great in the beginning of the year. And then after that, they're just like, I don't know if this is the guy we all thought he might be.
And as we talk about, free agency continues to be a gamble because you don't know the type of player you're getting. And for Soto, that money looks like it's well spent for the Mets. He wasn't the reason that they didn't make the playoffs. He's certainly a player that you can build around. You have all the prime of his career. But for a Tucker situation, have we seen his best years? And that's what the front office is going back and forth to saying, was he a product of the Houston system? Like all these things, whether it's fair or not, those are things that people are saying out loud, and it does affect what the market value of someone like him is.
Yeah, he's lost that feeling of franchise-altering player. I think he still has the feeling of like a really nice additional piece for sure. But does someone think that like he can be the best player on their team? I'm not sure there's anyone that feels that way anymore.
And that can change overnight, as we mentioned. I don't know if Cody Bellinger changed that to be a franchise player, but there's a little bit more shine on him than there was last. We felt like we were settling as a Yankee fan base, settling for Bellinger. We liked him. There was a good story with his dad playing for the Yankees, all that. But now the season he had batting around Judge, like, I mean, he's a guy who's going to be one of the highly touted offensive free agents come in the winter. And I fully expect him to get paid top dollar and the Yankees to be competed with. I would love to see him back in the Yankee uniform. I just don't think it's going to happen.
Yeah, what I love about Bellinger as a baseball fan is his athleticism, how he can play different positions. He's just such a good athlete out there. You see the plays he makes, just like a natural. What I dislike about him, what scares me a little bit, is that swing is so gigantic that I feel like there is such a range of seasons for him. And there is. The proof is in the pudding. Go look at his season by season. It is as big of a range. It looks like 5 different players. So to commit to him long term is a little bit scary, because like, when is he going to go into those doldrums that he has gone on into before? And I'm sure some people will say, oh, those seasons he just wasn't healthy, but I don't know. That's part of the game too. So there is a little bit that scares me about committing. Even if my Mets wanted to commit to him long term, I'd be happy, but also a little bit cautious.
So on our way out the door here, make sure you guys follow us on Instagram and on Twitter at Tablesetters Pod. That's where you can get all the exclusive playoff content, all the clips that Devin's been posting, conversations, all that great stuff. So, Devin, I'm freezing a little bit. I'll let you do the way out and tell us anything else that you want to get off your mind.
All right, guys, as always, thanks for tuning in here. Hope you enjoyed the first part of the episode with Steve and I just kind of going through the 2 series we have going on right in the middle of both of those series right now. And also the second half of our episode with Jordan Hall. Make sure to give him a follow if you do not. Give them a listen to Eat 'em Up Pod. I think it'll be interesting in the offseason. The Tigers are definitely one of the more fascinating teams to watch, especially the Skubal stuff. So watch them, tune into us, follow us on Twitter at Tablesetters Pod. Give us a look on YouTube, subscribe there as well, on IG as well at Tablesetters Pod. We'll be posting there a lot throughout the postseason. We put on our notables each day before the games get started. So interact with us there. We've got some really good interaction. You can go to Dugout Mugs, use code TS10 or use our link to give us a little kickback. If you're looking to purchase something from them, we'd appreciate it. And we'll be back soon here. My guess is if these series go a little long, we'll be back before the CSs are done. And if they go a little quicker than we think, maybe we won't be back until a little World Series preview. But stay tuned. We're always communicating with everybody about our episodes, when they'll be on. And thanks for listening. We'll be back soon.
And thank you guys for listening. We will talk to you after a while. And as always, happy baseball.
In a year that has been so